All right, we're live. Actually, this is live for the second time today because Melissa's been hard to get on. So we were kind of talking about mindset, and she had some interesting ideas about planning out the failures and getting through them. And we talked briefly last time about reverse engineering goals, which I think is really clever, right? Because especially like my jiu-jitsu head says to me, like when someone tells me, oh, I really want to get my blue belt this year, and I'm like, do you know what you really want to do this year? Learn how to escape side control, not give up your back, and all those skills that are process orientated rather than worrying about those other things, which I imagine is probably like people going, oh, I want $1 million in the bank. And you can want that $1 million in the bank as much as you want, but if you don't focus on the processes to put $1 million in the bank, it's not going to get there.
100%.
And I personally find it difficult sometimes to reverse engineer the goals, and that's why I have coaches for all different sorts of things as well. So what are some of the tips that maybe we can talk about today to help people reverse engineer their goals and get started?
I love this subject because I think that most people get this confused because we've never been taught how to make goals happen. And for this reason, most people's goals are actually dreams. They're superficial ideas of what they could possibly want, but they have absolutely no idea how to make them happen. And the jiu-jitsu analogy is a great one because, yes, the analogy is that the belt is a lag indicator for getting everything else right. You need to hit certain competencies, you need to get a certain level of mastery in certain areas of your jiu-jitsu game in order to be rewarded with the kind of 2 inches of fabric that you wrap around your waist. And if you don't get those competencies, it's one of those martial arts where you're not going to get the outcome. You're not going to get the belt because you can't fake it. As long as you're at a school that holds those moral standards, which as we know you do. So when it comes to your money, many people chase the superficial things themselves. They have a superficial idea of what they think they need to achieve financial freedom, and they're not invested into it. But the reality is that money is just a vehicle. It is a vehicle that gets you to a specific destination. And when we're going to start working out what financial freedom really means, or even just having some level of financial stability, we need to start with the end in mind. Because the reality is, if you're starting at where you are right now and you're just trying to push that forwards, you could end up on a very, very different path than what you ultimately want to get onto. And what I found in my experience after working with thousands of clients is that financial freedom is subjective. I've never found two people in all of my 14 years in this space that have ever had exactly the same goals or definitions of financial freedom. We all want to live in different houses. We all want to be debt-free at different times of our lives. We all want to provide different experiences and upbringings to our kids. We all want to have different holidays with varying budgets. We all want to pull up stumps at a different age. All of these things are hugely subjective. So what we need to do firstly, mate, is we need to get really clear on what are these milestones. And there's only two types of milestones that we have when it comes to goal setting. There are lifestyle milestones. So milestones that add quality to your life and will likely cost you time and or money. They will typically not make you money. So these are things like experiences, holidays, putting your kids through a nice school, providing for your family, doing renovations, all of these kinds of things. And then on the flip side, we've got financial goals. Although these might make you happy, they are normally done for the appreciation of wealth. So buying your home, paying it off in full, building an investment portfolio, creating passive income, having the financial means to retire at 50, whatever those goals might be. So what you need to do is you need to get clear on what is your motivator. And there are typically two types of people. There are people who are really financially motivated. They are driven by achieving financial goals. And in my experience, that's not the vast majority. That's the minority. This is why many people fall short of their goals. And then on the flip side, what majority of us are motivated by, myself included, is the lifestyle. Being able to be afforded the ability to do the things that we want to do, when we want to do them, with whom we want to do them, without having to answer to anybody else. And if that's what you're motivated by, let's focus on that as your primary goals and work out what do we need to do in the financial side to support it. So that's step number one.
Yeah, that's true. And some of my favorite times of my life in the past, I was actually working part-time and, just grinding away, doing things that I really enjoyed doing. And that actually, is something that I've really worked hard on is creating a lifestyle and business that all melds together. Now, it's funny, any of that stuff you could have just immediately replaced as well with fitness. We all have a different idea of what fitness is, but there's some metrics that you can cover. There's some strength gains that you can cover. You can just pick some super compound exercises that you can cover, and you can always check your body fat percentage as well. Some simple things that are going to mean different things to different people, but again, tracking the numbers are super important. But again, everyone having a six-pack isn't exactly a useful fitness goal. But at the same time, like your lifestyle and how you live and how you're enjoying life now is actually super duper important. And there isn't too many trainers talking about it. And I'm more interested in having people come in and train and get inside the community and create a lifestyle of having fun living a fit and healthy life, rather than walking around with six packs, taking pictures of themselves in the mirror. When most of those people I know are actually really freaking miserable.
I had the same experience, Ian. Like when I was younger, early 20s, I really wanted a six pack, and I was eating 5 meals a day of poached chicken and tuna and brown rice and broccoli, and I was miserable. And like I love food, and I was training, and I got myself down to, I think it was about 10% body fat, and I hated it. I couldn't sustain it. All of the joy had been sucked out of life. And then I realized, well, what actually do I want to do? Okay, well, what I do best and what my body responds best to is good quality compound exercises. So when I transitioned out of this kind of I had this program that I got off some internet forum of guys who know it all, and then I went to a 5x5 compound exercise strategy. And my jiu-jitsu went through the roof. My strength went through the roof. I was happier. I could eat the things that I wanted to eat. And I've been able to have a sustainable lifestyle. And this is the difference between a diet and a lifestyle choice. A diet, it presupposes that it's going to end at some point in time. And a lifestyle choice is that you're making a conscious decision to play the marathon. And I think you'll always do better off running the marathon than trying to run the sprint.
So what we call that in wealth terms, maybe like the difference between, like a weekly budget and a wealth plan. Like where's it going to go? What's the strategy for things long term? I mean, I know Linda and I have had our fair share of arguing about money and credit cards and all these interesting things. And then we've had 1,000,001 sick dogs, and just being able to have that money there to be able to pay for your dog's surgeries. Like I got a dog with 2 ACL reconstructions and half her spleen missing, and it's nice to be able to have that money there, so you don't have to consider putting your dog down at the first operation.
Exactly. And I think bringing this back to fitness terms, that game plan that we're talking about is basically around your fitness goals. What are you actually trying to achieve? The second part is, well, what are the tools that we have in our kit bag? Like in fitness, you've got your training. So you've got your weight training, you've got your cardio, and then you've got your diet, right? And same thing with finance. You've got your cash flow, you've got your debt, and you've got your investments. So it's a matter of working out, how do you make those three things work for you to advance your situation? And unless you get the cash flow right, which would be equivalent to the diet. Like, what do they say? The 70% of your gains is made in the kitchen.
Yeah.
70% of your gains when it comes to finance comes from cash flow. And it's about making sure that you've got that structure in place and that you're focusing on the lifestyle play, not treating your cash flow like a diet and trying to budget of cutting all the joy out of life, because you're going to relapse. You're going to fall off the rails, and then you're going to end up doing yourself more harm than good. So we set up structures that allows us to live for today and plan for tomorrow. Still enjoy life, but make sure we're putting money away for the future so we can achieve the big picture goal.
Yeah, and it makes sense. So let's take someone on an average wage, making 52 grand a year. Where does a person like that start? Like they're probably listening to this, go, it sounds like a great idea, but shit, I only make 52 grand a year. Where the hell do I start?
The big thing is that your earned income is never going to make you wealthy. It's what you do with your earned income that matters. And I've had clients who have earned very modest incomes, 50, 60,000, but because they've known how to control their income and particularly control their lifestyle and still maintain a healthy surplus, they've ended up building multi-million-dollar empires. And on the flip side, I've had clients that have earned 7 figures a year in personal income and have been worse off because their lifestyle creep actually exceeded what they could afford. So what you need to firstly understand is you need to understand cash flow control. It is not the money that you earn that matters. It's how much that's left over that it counts. And it's what you do with it that matters. So if you can maintain a surplus, and ideally, once you've done your household cash flow, you should be able to keep at least 20% of your net household income in surplus. So your measure of success is as follows. Your fixed expenses or your non-discretionary expenses, the necessities of life, should not exceed 65% of your net income, ideally 50%. So that's your rent, your mortgage, your bills, your groceries, all that stuff. Your discretionary, your nice to haves, so eating out, buying stuff for yourself, going on holidays, all of those nice things, should not exceed 15 to 30%, depending on your non-discretionary. So if your non-discretionary is 50, you can spend 30 on discretionary. If your non-discretionary is 65%, you can only spend 15 on discretionary. And the reason for that is that both of those numbers, when added together, should not exceed 80% of your net income. So if you're earning 50, you should be able to save 10. If you're earning 100 net, you should be able to save 20. And it's what we do with that surplus that matters the most.
Now, often I find at least when trying to get people some quick results, right? Like I can tell people straight away when they come to see me about nutrition, I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to get you some really quick results. Let's just cut out grog and sugar this month and train. Like there's two things. I can get you some real quick wins. Most people won't add all those things into their diets and ruin everything straight away.
Sure.
So I'll get you some quick wins, but then people are like, okay, what's next, Ian? What do I do next? And we can start then helping them. So how do we get some people some quick wins when it comes to saving money?
First thing is setting up a cash flow structure. If all of your money is coming into a single bank account that you draw from willy-nilly from your debit card, or even worse, you use a credit card and then you try and pay your credit card off monthly, or you're just chipping away at it, then it's likely that you have zero clarity around what is coming and going when it comes to your cash flow, which means you have no cash flow control. By setting up a really simple cash flow structure that I talk about in my book, my first book, Enjoy the Journey, Creating Wealth and Living the Life That You Desire. In chapter 5, I give you a series of depending on your situation, 5 to 6 bank accounts that allow you to segment your fixed expenses, your discretionary, your spending money, your bills, and your holidays, and allowing everything to go into its own hole and making sure that we've got everything accounted for, which in our experience increases your ability to maintain surplus by about 15 to 20% almost immediately. And the reason for it is because we're removing what we call cash flow bottlenecks. Because from looking at every single client over the years, and we've worked with thousands of clients, it is not the big expenses that are destroying their cash flow. It's the little things that they don't look at twice that add up. And there's hundreds of dollars, in some cases thousands of dollars, that's just slipping through your fingers because you haven't thought about it. You don't have a structure in place. So that's first thing. We do that every time, and everyone who we set that up with, they rave about it. It's like night and day.
Yeah, I think that's all really solid, useful advice. So we want to go back to the start, figure out what you want to use your money for. Okay, for whether you're saving for a holiday because you want to go train with Gordon Ryan and John Danaher in Puerto Rico, which like I recommend. Hopefully soon we'll be able to travel again, and we'll get to those adventures. So figure out what it is that you want your money for. If it's fitness, figure out what you're trying to get fit for. I would suggest to most people, if you just want to lose 5 kilos, that it's not going to work. If you wanted to, say, live a healthier lifestyle, then you'll probably be able to maintain that 5 kilo loss. But if all you're doing is chasing boot camp to boot camp, I feel like it's chasing like weekly budget to weekly budget. You don't actually know where you want to end up. So it makes it really difficult to adhere to, which is once you get good at goal setting. I mean, the whole idea about martial arts and fitness training, one of the reasons I think it's so good and powerful for people's lives is you should be using the routine and the discipline and the resilience that you build from being successful at those things to be successful in the other areas in your life. And this is one of the reasons why I've really tried to bring you on and expose some people this year to saving a little bit of money, to understand that maybe your $50 gym membership where you're no longer hanging out with people and drinking $200 on a weekend is an investment, not a cost.
Exactly.
So you got to figure out who the people are around you that give you energy, what activities give you energy, and what ones are draining. It's like if you go out and you're having a party, but the next day you're drained for the next 3 days, maybe that's not a weekly activity that you should be doing. Maybe you should be saving it for birthdays, special occasions, celebrations. I don't advocate anybody having to give up things entirely. I refuse to be caught by that dogma, but I've also spent really long periods without alcohol and without sugar, like extremely long periods. and those times were some of the most productive times of my life.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, mate. I decided to give up drinking for a year about 5 years ago. And then I was about 3 months in, and I finally realized that I was running on 2 cylinders my entire adult life. And from that moment on, I decided I'd never drink again. And 5 years on, and I've never had more clarity. And that was obviously a conscious decision. But what the whole purpose of this exercise is identifying the things in your life and potentially your business that are no longer serving you and removing them.
Yep. That's important. And this is actually, look, we'll go back to fitness again, because I've been spending so many years training people in fitness. Is sometimes the question I like to ask people is like, what's the number one food that you think you eat that does the most damage? And they're like, oh, bread for sure. And I'm like, well, get that out of your house. Let's just cut that one. Let's cut that one away. And the only time you eat bread is when you're out at a restaurant or you buy a sandwich. So you just get that sandwich so you're not sitting at home snacking on bread. You don't have to get rid of it completely, but get rid of the temptation at least.
100%. Can't eat it if it's not there, right?
Yeah. It's like,
and the same thing goes for cash flow. We one of the first things we do is we help our clients pay themselves first. We set up an automated strategy for them to contribute to investments or repaying their debts, and then we allow them to live on what's left, because you can't spend what's not there.
Perfect. Makes perfect sense. And that was something that when I opened the gym, like I was like, okay, what's the bare minimum I need to pay myself for groceries? And I figured out, like, if I didn't spend money on absolutely anything, I could survive on $300 a week, and Linda and I could have all our bills paid. So that's what we did, for like 12 months. No movies for the kids or anyone. We just found other ways to have fun for a 12-month period. And, like it was worth it. It was 100% worth it. But you need to figure out what the non-negotiables are. And, things like getting rid of movies and coffees. Man, I enjoyed adding back in coffee.
It's one of my vices, mate. I love a good coffee. And look, I think what's interesting is that we've been conditioned by society to be consumers, serial consumers. And for that reason, we feel that there are certain things that we say are non-negotiable, but ask yourself seriously, are they? Or are they a nice to have? And I think you can rewrite what makes you happy. And what are the things? Like, one of the things that we used to do is I used to go out and get a barista-made coffee every single day. And then since COVID, we've now kind of got into making our own coffee at home, and it's actually better. I enjoy it more. So it's about just always challenging what you see as the status quo, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a non-negotiable.
So let me ask you this: does the car have a barista machine in it for when you travel around there?
We've got one of those mocha things where you basically you fill the bottom with water and you put the coffee in it, and that's basically we can make coffee as good as a barista machine. And I've got a little battery operated milk frother, and I'm a simple man. I make my cafe latte nearly as good as they do in the shop.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I did at home too for that 12 months. I had a stovetop espresso machine, and they work really well. And most of the time during the year, I drink coffee black unless I'm going through a fat phase, which happens every now and then. That's good. I think that definitely people got some good golden nuggets out of that today. Remember, it doesn't matter whether it's fitness, wealth, or martial arts. You need to focus on the process. It's got to be enjoyable. Like your life doesn't need to be like 100% misery, but you need to make the sacrifices in the right places. And when the going gets tough and you've got to pull back on everything else, what are seriously your non-negotiables? Is your martial arts and fitness training seriously a non-negotiable? Because I think for a lot of people they become negotiable because it's hard work, but for me that's the top of the tier. It's like no matter what happens, I'm going to be investing money into my martial arts and into my fitness, because I feel that helps me save money and stay on task with everything else. So you got to figure out what those are for yourself. So for some people it might not be.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I called my book Enjoy the Journey for a reason, is because you should. Money, wealth, fitness, whatever it is, shouldn't have to be difficult as long as you breathe purpose into it. If you're running someone else's race, of course it's going to be exhausting. You got to define what are the rules of your race, where are you running to, and then work out what's the optimal path to take to get there.
Yeah, and I talked about that with Mel briefly this morning. That self-awareness of what you want and how you're failing is really important, and I really think that that's a skill that people are missing. Like if you don't have the self-awareness to know that your belief systems aren't attached to like the correct facts or knowledge, then it's not gonna serve you well. That like a common one for an excuse for not being able to lose weight is, I can't exercise at the moment, so I can't lose weight. And it's like, well, it's actually what's got to do in your mouth. You can not exercise and quite easily lose weight because most of it's nutrition. We know that, So, like you could be in a wheelchair and not moving and losing weight by managing what goes in your mouth. So, I suppose, if you have a job, then hopefully you can at least save a little bit of money for a holiday or something at the end of the year, and
exactly
enjoy the fruits of your labor.
And there's two people in this world. There's people who find a way, or there's people who find an excuse. So if it's important enough to you, you'll find a way.
100%. Thanks for your time this morning, Jackson. I always appreciate it. It's always good talk, and I'm sure my students will love it and get a few little golden nuggets from you.
Happy to help. Chat to you soon, mate.